Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Myself, Karishma Lakhani from the Corporate Communication teams at IFA Global would like to thank you all for being here on this platform. Topic for today's webinar is how to implement a back-tested quant-based approach to FX hedging and investment portfolio allocation. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce you all to today's speaker, Mr. Abhishek Goenka, founder and CEO at IFA Global. Under his leadership, the IFA Global has catered to over 1,000 clients and has managed a cumulative FX exposure of over 20 billion USD. Mr. Abhishek is well sought for his views by business channels and dailies like Bloomberg, CNBC, ET Now, Economic Times, Business Standard, Economics, etc. Post the presentation, we will have a Q&A session where Mr. Abhishek will be answering all your queries. Now, without any further ado, let's begin today's session.
Thank you, Karishma. Hi, good evening all. Are you able to hear me loud and clear? Just say yes, 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 so that I know that my voice is clear. Excellent. Thanks, Rajesh. Thanks, Ramakrishna. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Madan. Thanks, Gaurav. So it's loud and clear. So first of all, once again, thanks for taking out time. And I'm going to make sure by the next 1 hour, we are going to make some very interesting takeaways like always. And the subject might sound a little technical, but we have tried our best to make it extremely simple. So at the end, if you have 3 or 4 interesting takeaways, I think your time will be well spent and we'll ensure that, right? Are you with me? Just say yes, yes, yes. Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks, Shahrukh. Excellent, Gaurav. Lovely. So let's move forward. So basically the structure, first of all, we're going to focus on FX and how you can build an optimum hedge portfolio in a quantitative manner. I mean, 90% of people are doing it. They have their own ways of doing it. But then today we're going to tell you how can you use a little bit of simple maths to make a decent hedge portfolio. You know, what are the strategies most of the people are doing forwards? Some people don't do options. Some people fear options. But today, in a simple way, we'll tell you when do you use options, you know, and some of the back testing which has been done will give you and make things simpler for you. Exotic derivatives are going to be from next year. People can use exotic derivatives in their favor. You know, if you understand it well, you use it with decent leverage, you can actually use it for your favor. And in the second part, we're going to focus on how do you have a proper risk-adjusted asset allocation for your investment portfolio. You know, and a very simple quant-based model, which has been back-tested over the last 10 years. How can you have a customized asset allocation by having a very, very proper risk-adjusted return post-tax, post-fees, right? Are you with me? Right. So let's take a simple case. A lot of you people must be CFOs, promoters of companies, treasurers. So you all understand that this is a common question which gets asked. You know, Rajesh, who's a promoter of a large company, you know, he's little professional and he wants like, I don't want to take a view on the market. I don't know where the market is going. And I don't have so much time also to look at FX, you know. So he tells his CFO that, you know, help me. With a 90% probability, you just tell me that what is my risk on my book, you know. And I don't want to lose more than 4% my top line in my bit. Just plan a strategy, fix it, plus minus 5-10%, but I don't want any surprises. Have you had a similar question from your MD or from your seniors? Just say why. So I know that I'm addressing the right people over here. Risk has to be ascertained, right? Right, Uksar? Yes. Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks, Dinesh. Thanks for joining. So the simple concept is value at risk, But before I move forward to the value at risk, let me ask you that under a 90% probability, so you want to be like 90% sure that what is going to be the maximum movement of dollar rupee in 1 year. If I have to ask you this question, what will you answer? And I am launching one poll like always. Let's make it interactive. Let's have your thoughts. What are you thinking about this? That even a 90% probability, what should be the maximum movement of dollar rupee? 1 second. Let me launch the poll. Okay. Now it's perfect. Can you all see the poll? I want you to please put your polls across. Let the entire market know what is going to be the probability. The 90% probability. Getting 4%, 7%, 10%, 13%. We'll wait for 30 seconds more. 4, 7, 10, 13. Few people are putting 13, few people are putting 10, 7, 4. Let's see who's right and who's wrong. That will only be confirmed after 1 year. But excellent. Let me end the poll and share the results. Maximum people feel, 40% of the people feel that it's going to be 4%. 7% of the people feel that it's going to, 34% of the people feel that it's going to be 7%. So broadly, people are feeling that 74% of the people are feeling that it's going to be 4 to 7%. Few of them are also feeling 10 and 13%. Well, is there any perfect answer for this? No, at least not. You can think, it is not something which is, depends from person to person. But the promoter had a clear instruction that I don't want any vagaries. So what does the CFO do? If he goes and asks every people in his team, everybody gives a different number. So will life not be easy if we can put one number, which is a universally accepted number, and a universally accepted way of measuring risk? And that is what is VAR. Have you heard about VAR before? Somebody can just say why in case they have heard VAR. Yes, Dheeraj has heard. Aditya, yes. So with the concept of VAR, basically it's a mathematical way of measuring risk. So you take the past data and you run a simulation of VAR, calculate the mean, and then let's not get into detail. Basically what you understand is the range of dollar rupee. VAR वगैरह भूल जाओ. Just understand it tells you the range of dollar rupee mathematically. The next time if anybody is asking you the view on dollar rupee, have this thing in your mind that mathematically what is the number of VAR? Then 90% probability. So 90% probability says that the exporters would not have concern because the rupee is not going to breach 68 and a higher level 83. Now you might be feeling that what Abhishek is talking. Rupee is not going to 83. Rupee is not going to 68. Well, who knows? Markets can go anywhere. A lot of people actually voted for 4%. If you ask me, possibly that could be the right answer after 1 year. But who knows? The last 2-3 years, rupee has been depreciating by around 3.5%. So broadly, it's worked out well, but not necessarily in the future is going to be the same because markets are always predictable. So let's put a mathematical number, 68 and 83. Now the CFO goes to his promoter and says, this is the number. Now let me run a maths. So after putting this number, he decides the hedge ratio based on this maths. So say if he has 1,000 crore turnover, he doesn't want to lose 4%, then 40 crores. And then he gets a number of say 68 on the downside. Then he knows that I have to start booking more of forwards, less of options. If the room is 6-7%, that comfort is there, then you can reduce a little bit of forwards, go for more of options, right? So different industry, different company would have different mindset. Different promoters would have different mindset, right? Some of you would have worked with promoters who's like, I want to take maximum risk. Somebody would be in this camp where they have a maximum margin and maximum risk. Some people would be in the camp, I have maximum margin, but I don't have any risk appetite. He's a risk averse guy. So you identify which particular box are you. If I can just have few of you guys name the boxes that you are in. Just write the name of the box. So if it's a 9 box, you can write 9 box, 5 box, 5 box, 4 box, 4 box. Just write the number. 5. Medium risk, medium tolerance. Akshita says 5, Dheeraj says 7. Ajinkya says 5. Mamta says 8. See, everybody is in a different box. So there is not one rule which is applicable for all the company, all the industry, and all the promoters. So we all have is different appetite and tolerance. So based on your appetite and tolerance, you will fall in one of these boxes, and then you can design your strategy. Now, again, this strategy is something that we have put it across in a small range, but you will have your own strategy, right? And you should build your own strategy, backtest it, and then see whether it works for you or not. Because there will be some limitations on paying premiums. There will be some limitations on your mindset, tolerance, etc. Now, my next question to you is, how many of you have actually used options while hedging? So, and how many of you are feeling that this is something that you are struggling with? Just put in your answers. I don't know options. Options are risky. My team does not understand options. Forwards are easy. Why explore complicated stuff? Nothing wrong. We're all in the learning curve. Options take time to understand, but once you get a hang of it, I think it can generate a lot of alpha. I mean, we have been using it so, and in 2018, 2013, 2008, whenever we got this chance of making money in options, and we killed it. And the clients love us for that. But the concepts have to be clear so that when the right time comes, you can bat, right? See, most of the people don't understand options. And secondly, if I put the results, I'll just wait for 30 more seconds. Guys, please put your votes. Let's understand why people don't do options or why people are not very successful in options. I just love the audience here. They're so interactive and everybody is making this session very, very useful with the help of voting and polls. Let's maintain it like that. And this is just amazing. Let's keep polling. Okay. I've just made an end of the poll and I'm sharing the result. Forwards are easy. Why to complicate stuff? Huh? Nothing wrong in it. I don't know options. Options are risky. My team doesn't understand options. These are the typical thing that we hear when we talk to clients. The clients are like, yeah, it's my business. I don't want to focus on options and all that. In some of the cases, people just say it's too risky. They have experience of 2008. But the question is, you should understand this and then leave it. But then you have a choice that you have decided not to do options because you feel that forwards are better for you. But at least understand what it is and when do you actually use it, right? Are you with me? Just say why. Okay. So once you have decided to take an option, then you have to decide that what strategy should I take? Now options, there are multiple options one can do. You heard Seagulls, range forward, plain vanilla, forwards. Open one of these books and you will see hundreds of options. Ignore. Some of the options don't even qualify for hedge accounting, where it's not a perfect hedge. Companies do it, but you may ignore them. So some of the options we have just cut. Let's focus on simple options, plain vanilla puts, forwards, risk reversal. I'm not going to explain you what option is here, but I'm just going to tell you that what benefit it is giving you under what circumstances. And that's what is important. You can always come back to us or our team or watch any of our YouTube videos or blogs and understand what options are in details, because time is too short to make you understand. But what we are trying to do is that to tell you that there are simple strategies which can work well. So for exports, what we have also understood that forwards are very, very good, no doubt about it. So if you're having a continuous hedging strategy of forwards, whether it be 50, 60, 70, 80% of your annual turnover, all your 3 months turnover, it's a great strategy. One should definitely do it. But the question is, if you have to do options, which is a strategy, which is a next best strategy after forward? It comes to range forward in a normal situation, because range forward strategy, over here, the deviation, the risk return profile is also good. The Sharpe ratio is good. People who understand Sharpe ratio is basically the way to measure that whether the strategy is good as compared to other strategies. It's just simple. But the question is, if forwards is so good, why people do options? The smart people in the treasury, the smart people in the banks, even our dealers over here, they actually look at opportunities when to do options. And trust me, these are wonderful opportunities. We actually, back tested and saw that when do you actually do options. So to make you understand that when do you actually do options, first of all, you have to understand a simple concept of vols. What is vols? Vols is nothing, basically a number which tells you that if it's a 5% vols, that the market is expecting a 5% volatility in the market. The vols keep increasing when the markets gets nervous. When does equity markets get nervous? The markets actually fall or go up. When does the markets get nervous? In equities? Let's put it on chat. Up or down? Fall, Rajesh, right? Dheeraj, right. So markets get nervous when it falls. When does the vols go up in dollar rupee? When the rupee depreciates or appreciates? When does people panic? Depreciates, right, Uksa? So people get panicky. Why? Because in equity markets, people are long. So when markets fall, everybody gets panicked. In dollar rupee market, typically the exporters are sold and importers are unhedged. So when the rupee depreciates, everybody gets panicked. So what happens? The vols shoot up. And when the vols shoot up, there is an opportunity. And when the vols are low, there is also an opportunity. Okay. So what we actually saw, that the vols are actually favored more towards the calls. And when we actually run the data, we saw that when the vols are below 5.5%, means everybody over here who's thinking that rupee will just not move. Rupee is in broad range. RBI is there. It keeps accumulating dollars whenever the rupee comes to 72, 73. It keeps selling dollars when the rupee is going to 75, 75. Market doesn't work like that. It can work for some time, but sometimes, the market just burst. So when the vols are very low, very, very compressed, 5% vols, the carry to vol ratio is very, very low. Carry to vol is again one of the indicators that we track in a quant model, just to see when the breakout happens. So, we have seen that reducing your hedge ratio or taking a put option or taking an at the money spot put option are great strategies. So when the rupee is low, vols is low, the spot rates are low, reduce your little bit of hedge ratio by converting a part of your forwards to puts. Your hedges are intact. Only the instrument is changing from forwards to slightly put. So if you are maintaining a 70% strategy, say for a year, for a home textile company, say, you make it to 50-20. Because when the market will move up, because when the vols are lower, suddenly the markets will move up, you will participate in the weakness. And if you see the Sharpe ratio over is pretty decent. The gains are very good and the risk is also minimal. So if you want to take a strategy, you can actually go and take a strategy of a put at the money spot strategy where the gains are higher, the losses are okay, standard deviation is okay, and the rank is good. And the performance is you earn 42 paisa per quarter. So that's annualize it, it's approximately 125, 130 paisa. If you get a 1.5-2% extra by using this strategy, why not? That's where the alpha can be generated. Booking continuous forwards is great. Still, you will make 1% based on last 4-5 year data. But doing these strategies can increase your alpha even better. And we are always improving, just booking forwards is a lazy strategy. We can do something better. And that's what we are all sitting here to learn something new and implement something. Right? So for importers, a lot of these import companies I come across, MNCs, power appliances company, they said, our margins are good. We don't want to do any, like I just want to book cover forwards for 3 months. And, my costing this side, I don't want to take any risk. You know what? The question I want to ask people is that if you want to just book forwards for imports in a currency like dollar rupee, where, we have seen last 10 years, average depreciation is close to around, say, 3.5%, average forward premium is, say, 4.5%. And there is a room for, say, a percentage of money to be made. And if you are booking 100% forward, theoretically, you are doing right. But if you're sitting in a treasury, why are you sitting in the treasury? You can definitely add some alpha. What if I tell you a strategy by which you can add alpha to the extent of 50 paisa in a year by 100% hedge? It makes sense, right? Just buy a call, sell a put continuously, and you will make that money. So what we learned in backtested data that if you follow a range forward option strategy for an importer, you actually made that 50 paisa without taking any additional risk. So why not do that, right? So anybody who feels that 100% cover in a forward in an import is a great strategy, we have a better strategy for you, which can generate some alpha and probably add to your bonuses, right? And people do seagulls, call spread and all that, but they're not like perfect hedges. So the point I want to make across is that even when the vols go up, a range forward strategy, which has a good Sharpe ratio, a good standard deviation, it's a good strategy. So that's another takeaway, that when the vols are low or higher, importers range forward works. And it can generate some alpha rather than booking 100% forward. And for exporter, when the vols are low, you can typically go in for a at the money spot put options and generate some alpha. Are you with me? Is there any takeaway? Just say why. People who don't understand, it's good. You can go back to a drawing board, understand what options are. It's fine. But what is important is to understand that alpha can be generated and it has been mathematically tested in the past, right? Thanks, Madan. Thanks, Ajinkya. Lovely. Okay, let's move forward. How many of you have seen 2008 global financial markets crisis, derivatives mess that happened in India? How many of you have seen that? Just say why. Ruksar has seen, Guru has seen, Dictation has seen. Excellent. You all know that time derivatives were a big mess in India. People lost money. Banks were aggressive. RBI clamped down, etc. And there was a long window where people just didn't want to touch derivatives. But we have seen crashes in stock markets also. That doesn't mean that people don't come in stock markets, because you know that companies generate cash and ultimately the markets go up. One thing is not knowing and doing, and one thing is knowing and doing. I am on the other camp, knowing and doing. I have been talking to companies who are using very nice derivative structures in their subsidiaries and making tons of money consistently. Markets like Singapore, Hong Kong, London, phenomenal. People do make money because they understand what they're doing. They're just not going for anything, right? And that's my message. Exotic derivatives are going to come from next year. Some of you already must be getting messages from banks with these ideas. We also keep getting. They're actually good. They're not bad. I will not tell you anything which is bad. But the point that I want to tell is understand what you're doing. Now, I'll give you a simple example of an export strategy. You can do a plain vanilla put option. You can do a range forward strategy. There's another strategy with a knock-in. A knock-in gives you further participation by paying. If you can see over here, 54 paisa is the cost. In a knock-in, there's a cost of 59 paisa, but you, by paying that 5 paisa extra, you are getting a further participation of 2 rupees. Makes complete sense. And if 80 touches, knock-in happens, the option comes back to original. But by 5 paisa, if I can participate 1.5, 2 rupees, why not? So understanding is very important. I'm not getting into details what this particular structure is. People who understand can just take a pick and understand what a knock-in is. But similarly, for an importer, certain structures where there is a knockout barrier of sell puts. When the rupee appreciates, you also participate there. When you book a forward, you don't participate in rupee appreciation. But there are structures where you can buy a call, sell a put, and then have a knockout also. So put goes out and you are participating. The simple point I want to make here is that by paying a little bit of extra premium, you will be able to participate for 2 rupees, 3 rupees in your favor. And that's the message I want to send you across. Right? Are you with me or getting lost? I don't see any participant dropping. So I'm sure people are enjoying the discussion, or even though they may not understand few things, but the message is sent across, right? Are you with me? Thanks, Ruxar, Madan, Avi. Lovely. And show a thumbs up, smiley, makes the entire environment a little bit positive. Thanks, Sachin. Excellent. You do all this. You need a right system to manage all this. So you can actually use a risk management software. All your orders, shipments, packing credit, discounting, forwards, options, and above all, the entire MIS, which is very important for your CFO or for the board. Your hedge ratio, currency-wise, country-wise, what is your forward outstanding, what banking limits you have, how much have you exhausted. Forward was better than options, do various kind of scenario analysis. So there are hundreds of features. This is one of our products, and some of the clients have started using it. And it's phenomenal. I love it. So maybe sometime you can ask our team and they can show you a demo. So we want to run in a professional manner. We just don't want to take a view and just talk to market. Understand the risk, measure it, hedge it, have some consistency on the profitability, and then record it and then present it. That's the approach one has to take in risk management. Some certainty should be there in terms of your company's profitability. Of course, we'll go to the second part of the presentation, but before that, no discussion can go below without discussing the view. No matter, nobody knows what's going to happen in the market, but views are important. So of course, a lot of positives in rupee. We have built up this $640 billion war chest. RBI has been continuously buying dollars, and whatever happens, they keep buying dollars, and the rupee appreciate. They don't let it appreciate. They want to keep it slightly depreciated because of China. They don't want to, have imports dumping in India. Of course, our trade deficit is going high, as we have seen last 3 months. It's around $23 billion, the last number of November. Crude has, retreated a little bit. That's a good sign. Countries have started opening up their reserves, and that's giving a little breather. But of course, the current rates are also not very, very great for crude and for India because you're net importer. High frequency indicators have started improving a little bit, but of course, consumption is down. Output gap has been closing. But there's a strong push towards capex, which is good. Fiscal has been good. After COVID, the first March to October number, that's around 37%. It's normally around 60-65%. So possibly in this entire year, we might just be better off by around 0.6%, 6.2 instead of 6.8, the deficit number. Interestingly, bond index inclusion is very much in the top. So if that happens in the next 3 to 6 months, and there's a lot of lobbying happening, we could actually see around one of the bond index, if we get included, we could see around $30 billion worth of flows coming in the market. And that's something that really is important and we need to take a note of, because the rupee just could go very strong whenever that happens. Now, negatives, of course, there are always negatives. Fed is tightening cycle. Slowly, they are tapering stuff. They might just raise interest rates sooner than expected if things go better. And of course, the capital markets, whenever that happens, there is outflows of emerging markets. We saw in 12-13 how rupee bear the brunt. But yeah, we are not like the fragile five. We're not like Turkish lira, South African rand, or the Brazil real of the past. Normally nowadays, RBI intervenes in spot market and NDF market. So rupee is broadly stable. And I don't feel that we're going to see that kind of 20-25% kind of movement in the rupee. But who knows? Anything can happen. This is a world of NFT, Bitcoins, and metaverse. Anything can happen. We have trade deficit is increasing last 3 months. We are seeing, and if it's something where people get concerned, then possibly rupee could slightly get weakened. Right now, we are seeing some weakness, possibly because of that. Unequal economic recovery. Small pockets economic recovery is there, but in larger rural pockets, we are still not. Having said that, all these things we have put in the model. So the model actually calculates the short-term, medium-term, long-term. So our clients know that. And we try our level best. Of course, a little bit of human element comes into picture, but then we try our level best. Our advisors actually give a view where, it's quantitatively derived based on rare trade deficit, fiscal deficit, flows, etc., around 36 indicators. So the second part, of course, everybody's favorite. Everybody wants to know, how do you invest? And as a company, we always have this approach where things are more systematic, more quant derived. So we just don't want to tell you, go and buy Reliance, go and buy Tata, or go and buy real estate because real estate bull run is there. We would like to make things more standardized and something which is more for long term. So we have to bring some maths behind it. So our quant model, is more mathematically oriented. So you have this entire universe today. Ask anyone, goes in a cocktail party, oh, angel funding is new, I should invest in angel funding. अगर मैं उनसे पूछूं कि भाई what is the return and risk profile of an angel fund, people don't know the answer. How much money can you lose? Private equity. What is the global benchmark of private equity return? Ask anybody, nobody knows. How much can you lose? People are not very clear about it. AIF. Okay, AIF is in. What's the taxation structure in AIF? Have you ever thought that making 20% return and having to pay, say, 30-35% tax, is that good? Or having a 15% return and possibly paying 15% tax, that is good. What do you think? Which is good? 20% return, 35% tax, or 15% return, 15% tax. What do you feel? Which is good? Guys, Dinesh, Vishal, which is good? 20% return, 35% tax. Second option, right? Right, Ruksar? No, Ruksar. If you have a higher return and you end up getting the same post-tax fees, doesn't make sense because your risk is increasing. So we have to focus on risk-adjusted returns. So there is a huge universe, and you will keep discussing with your friends, family, cocktail parties, television, CNBC, and host of advisors. The way we work is what can work for 25, 30 years. We'll invest that, and we'll backtest the data and then we'll invest accordingly, right? So the way we work is that, you basically have 4 asset allocations. You have equity, debt, commodities, real estate, a small portion you can put into alternatives or you can put into certain funds, but you should know what is the risk return profile. But broadly, you should have a approach where you should ask yourself first that, what's my risk and what is my return? What could be my maximum drawdown every 3 years when the market just corrects? And what could be my maximum drawdown every 10 years, when the market just tanks? If you know that, there is no shock. Tomorrow, if Nifty falls by 30%, say anything happens, we have seen what happened during COVID. Never known new virus, something comes up, or a new war kind of situation develops. If your portfolio falls down by 20%, you know it, right? Because you have calculated it in the past. So you're not going to be worried. But if you enter into anything which is illiquid, like we saw what happened in Templeton case, or you invest in a corporate bond, which is a AA rated or a single A rated, or you invest in some NBFC, which is giving you a 12% return with no exit, and you're not getting exit, you get panicky. So you take all that things into account and then make a portfolio, measure the risk return profile. That's the way we are comfortable for our clients. So my question to you is, do you actually follow a 100% asset allocation plan? Do you know what your portfolio risk is mathematically? Your tax structure, post fees, post expense. Do you exactly know? Have you written it down? Just say why if you have, and nothing to be feeling ashamed about, because I can tell you 95% of people don't do it. And you want to be in that 5%? Probably I'm going to show you how you can do it, right? You want to be in that 5%? Just say why. Right, Dinesh. Excellent. Thanks, Guru. So let's try to be in that 5%. How the large family offices or large HNIs would typically run it. So first is you understand your risk appetite and risk tolerance. See, guys, appetite and tolerance is 2 separate things, and you need to really put a number to it, because if you don't put a number to it, it is in hawa mein. Somebody say, 10% market girega, I'm okay. But when the market falls by 10%, he's not okay. Write it down. What is your appetite and how much will give you a good night's sleep? So you identify your risk return profile of every single asset class, what you're investing. Equity, okay, I know it can fall once in 10 years, 40%. Debt, I know when there's a mark to market on a longer term duration portfolio, I know how much risk. AA, single A, I know in a single A case, the corporate might just go bust. Know your risk, right? Once you know that, put a correlation across all these assets. When the equity goes up, what do we know? If equity goes up, gold comes down. Do you agree with me? Say yes. Have you heard this thing? People saying gold is a hedge against equities. So if I ask you, gold is a hedge, but how much is a return for gold in the last 10 years? Anybody? Return of gold? Dinesh, Ajinkya, Rajesh? Last 10 years return gold. Post tax. Anybody? No. No one has an answer. 7%, Rukhsar says. Pranav, 15%. Guys, it's around 4.5%. And now Government of India is giving you 2.5% interest on a sovereign bond. So it could be 6-7%, who knows? But the question is, have you measured the risk of gold? The risk adjusted return of gold is actually not justified. Though it's a great thing to have in your portfolio, but the risk return is not justified. So the volatility is high, the return is low. Think about it, right? Once you know the assets in which you are investing, you know the correlation. If this goes up, how much this will come down? If this goes up, how much this will come down? If you have 7-8 assets, know what correlations it is. The portfolio correlation comes into picture. And once you have the portfolio correlation into picture, you know the total risk of your portfolio, written it down. Write it down. And next day when you go to a cocktail party and somebody says, go and buy an angel fund, put an allocation of angel fund, fine. But write a revised risk and return of your portfolio. So that tomorrow if 5 companies go bust, you're not shocked. You know the return and risk. The next step is, risk malum pad gaya, return malum pad gaya. What is next? On a given level of risk, which portfolio gives you a slightly higher return? Sab mein risk 10% hai, 15% hai. One portfolio gives me 16, one portfolio gives me 17, one portfolio gives me 18. Where do you invest, guys? All the risk is same and the returns are different. Where do you invest? 16, 17, 18. Quick. 16, 17, 18. Very common sense. तो ज्यादा रिस्क क्यों लेना? रिस्क सेम है तो हायर रिटर्न, बट उसको मेजर करना पड़ेगा. You have to calculate which portfolio is going to give. Then you fix a benchmark. If you have a 70% Nifty, 30% fixed income, have a CRISIL bond index for fixed income. For Nifty, you have the Nifty ETF. Set a benchmark and then check. Is my portfolio doing good? Do I need to do anything every 3 months? Ask your question. Normally, you don't have to. Once a year, just reject your debt equity ratio. Or if you have some REITs or some InvITs, just figure it out. And select the right instrument. Suppose if you've thought equity 70% TW, then how much mid cap, how much small cap, how much large cap? Do you want to have a small cap? Well, small cap has given phenomenal return. But who have not seen 5 years of brunt in small caps? Do you remember 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 small caps? Huh? You remember? Till March, what was the situation of small caps and mid caps? Huge risk. People, lost their shirts because they did not measure risk of small cap, mid caps. And then review. This is a simple process, but nobody wants to follow it because it requires some work, right? Everybody was like, ठीक है यार, थोड़ा debt में डाल दिया, थोड़ा equity में डाल दिया, SIP जा रहा है, ठीक है. If you make it slightly proper, and especially if you have a little larger portfolio, then I think you can generate some alpha. So understand your risk tolerance. Look, what I have seen, look at this graph very carefully. What can you observe? Would you invest in a Bank Nifty or would you invest in a NASDAQ? For Bank Nifty, write BVV. For NASDAQ, write NNN. And why? So the orange line is the risk. The blue line is the return. How much is the return? Rukhsar says NASDAQ. Why, Rukhsar? Aditya says NASDAQ. Lower risk. Bang on. Lower risk. Simple. But जब same risk है, same return है, तो मैं higher risk क्यों लूँ? But then people just have one allocation in banks and just forget it. I mean, it falls, it just crashes. I'm not saying one asset class is bad or one asset class is good. But if because of the country risk premium, equity markets in the US fall less as compared to emerging market equities at times, why not have an allocation towards international equities also? And you don't have to believe me. Look at the correlation metrics. Nifty, over here, all these I have correlations. So Nifty and midcap has very strong positive correlation. So if you have 50-50 in both, you're actually having a very high allocation towards Indian equities. But if you actually put some money in NASDAQ, you can actually see the correlation is 0.57. Gold has minus 0.44. So if you want to have a little bit of gold in your portfolio, nothing wrong. It could give you 7-8% return post-tax because taxation is free after 8 years in a sovereign gold bond. The point I want to make here is whatever you do, have your correlation proper. You know, and this is data for 10 years. I agree that 14, 15 years, the correlation might just change a little bit, but broadly you have understood what I'm trying to say. You know, that try to see the correlation also while you are looking at it. And with the same level of risk, then you see what is my efficient frontier? Where am I getting the maximum return? Look at this portfolio. You know, there are 3 portfolios. One of these, which portfolio would you like to invest? ABC. Guys, just write ABC. C. Why? Simply because C is giving you a higher risk-adjusted return, better Sharpe ratio. So it's great. Invest in C. Because with a given level of risk, even if you can increase your return for 1 or 2%, the number is huge. In long term, 30 years, we all know compounding is like one wonder. You know, 30 years, 1 lakh SIP, 2% difference can give you how much? 13 crores extra. How much is it? You need 10, 100,000, 10,000 lakh, 10 lakh crore, 22 crores, 35 crores, 13 crores extra, right? Interesting takeaways. Think about it. So factors to consider while investing is, you have to look at liquidity, easy to entry, exit. You have 10, 15% allocation, you want to keep it liquid fund, fine. Look at the AUM size. Sometimes very large AUMs cannot give you good return. So whatever fund you invest, look at that. Look at the portfolio quality. Just open it, just have a look. If you don't, just look at some rating of Value Research or somebody and decide which funds to invest. Just don't go for any NFOs which comes in the market. Track record, corporate governance, and very important is taxation. When you invest in a debt fund, 3 years indexation you get, and your taxation is a little bit lesser. Equity after 1 year, 15%. But some of the structures, the taxation are high, even though you get higher return, doesn't work. So that also you have to say. So post fees, post tax is what you have to look at. You have to look at the overall customized portfolio. So just put in the numbers of your return and your risk profile. A portfolio will come, which is customized as per your requirement. Post tax, post fees, properly correlated, properly mathematically derived. So even if the market tanks, your number of risk and tolerance is documented. In the mind, there is no shocks. And expenses has to be minimum, because the only thing which is certainty is taxation and expense. भाई फंड मैनेजर को फीस तो देना ही है एंड टैक्स तो गवर्नमेंट ले लेगी, तो उसको लो रखो ना. रिटर्न आएगा नहीं आएगा बात की बात है, बट ये दोनों तो लगने वाले हैं, तो इसको लोएस्ट रखो. अरे भाई फी देना ही है तो एडवाइजर को दो, फिर चलो आपने काम किया, आपने फी ले लिया, बट व्हाई डू पे सो हाई एक्सपेंस without even knowing? I mean, ETF having the lowest expense nowadays, Navi and all, they're giving such low expense ETF. Look at those. And execution should be through one of the low-cost brokers. Simple. So a sample portfolio would look like this. If you want to have a 10% liquidity, you can allocate across asset class, PSU bonds, state government bonds, gold, equities, and look at the risk-adjusted return and the volatility, and accordingly invest. So the key takeaways that I want to give today is that while managing FX, follow a policy, understand why options are important, when do you use options, understand the concept of words. Hedging of portfolio has to be a combination. Only because you don't understand, don't say I don't want to do it. Understand and then leave it if you don't want to do it. That's the way I would like to do things. Exotic structures coming next year. Some of the companies with higher net worth would be eligible. Maybe 5 years, even you would be eligible in case your net worth is not more than that. But understand, it's very interesting. The world is using it. Use it in your favor. Investment portfolio, allocate as per the correlation metrics. Simple model, not much to do. Invest for long term. Get the compounding effect. Post tax, post fees, post expense. Very important. And then invest in all the asset classes where you have understanding and having a risk tolerant and risk appetite. So with this, guys, thanks for bearing with me. I'm sure there were some interesting takeaways, from an investment angle and from an FX angle and from a treasury software angle. Keep joining and you can put your questions across. And in case you want to hear a lot of our earlier webinars and Treasury Elite series, please follow them on our YouTube videos, subscribe to them. LinkedIn, you can add yourself to my LinkedIn. We keep sharing very, very interesting stuff. My email address is there. You can contact me if you have any queries. Put your questions across and me and my team will be happy to answer. And good, I could see 95% of the people throughout. So that means we have made some sense to you guys. So please put your questions across and I will put the Q&A. Okay, our email IDs are shared. Any questions you guys have? Thanks, Ritik. Thanks, Ramana. Put your questions across so that we can answer some of your questions. Thanks, Ramakrishna. Thanks, Shanmugam. Guys, need any help, please contact our team members. They shall be able to help you with any research. And there's some very interesting ideas. Okay. Guys, the PPT will be sent to you or you can figure it out on YouTube. Madan, yes, the dollar rupee could actually break higher ranges. I mean, who knows? Average depreciation is 3.5%, and that's what the entire world is prepared for. But if there is a quantitative easing in a much larger force or there's a hike of rates, sooner or later, emerging market currencies do get punished. That's what we saw earlier. Yeah. Karan, yes, natural hedging is good. It's always good. And the rest of the exposure has to be hedged. But in some of the cases where there are time mismatches, you can take both separate strategies. And if you have hedged both strategies to option and it's a perfect hedge, you may not follow natural hedging. That's also fine. I mean, we like to be active. So we would rather use options and forwards combinations. And in some cases, we may not use natural hedging, depending on the understanding of the treasury. But it's a great idea. No, there's no problem with natural hedging. Any questions? Karan, would love to take this question offline on the LIBOR reset. Of course, we have a separate fixed income desk who understands ECB very, very well, would have done backtesting on ECB. Of course, there are very good strategies. And how do you actually use for CCY, RS, IRS, and POS? We can discuss it offline. Great, great. Yes, Jagadishan, we have an investment template. We have not shown it here, but we have a perfect mathematical model. And the clients who are investing with us are actually the clients who are looking at longer term picture and not looking at tactical allocations. And I think they would typically look at it. Excellent, guys. It's 6:27. Thank you so much for your time. And judte rahiye, keep following us, keep following our videos. And every 1.5, 2 months, we're going to bring something very interesting for you guys. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you. Bye. Have a lovely, lovely weekend.